Hey, how's it going everyone? Teysind here, and today I want to talk about resolution versus frame rate. What is most important to you when playing a video game? Now obviously what makes up the graphics or the visuals of a game is much more than just resolution and frame rate. There's a lot more that goes into it. But I feel like these are the most common things that people, I guess, are focused on, or at least talk about with video games. Something that's also very obvious, and something that I guess, people who make the games are very sort of, what's the word? This information is very available to us, in terms of lighting effects and lots of stuff like that. We don't really know the details, but when a game comes out, most people tend to know what's the resolution at on which console, what's the frame rate. We see Digital Foundry going in depth in all the different frame rates of games, different modes, how it dips, whether it's stable, stuff like that. So just my simple answer, frame rate, hands down, is always most important to me. And it's not necessarily that wanting like super high 60 frames per second. That would possible in every game. I would love that over resolution. But for me, I think when you play a game where frame rate essentially is unstable, it really affects how I experience a game and enjoy it. A really good example is Final Fantasy 13 2. At least the copy I was playing, and I googled it just to make sure it wasn't my disc or PS3, and it seems to be a common issue, but there was so much frame rate drops, and that really annoyed me because that judder and sort of that, I don't know, something about it, I can't play a game properly. And especially when you're playing games like action RPGs, there is nothing worse than, sort of going in for a combo and you just see the game stuttering and stuff. Even if it's not significantly, it's usually enough for you to notice at times. So what I love in games, if a company were, trying to make a game like stable 1080p, but the frame rate were dropping, I would prefer a stable 900p game that would have a stable 30 frames per second. If that compromise would sort of allow them to improve the stability of the frame rate. And if I was looking at things like Nintendo, for example, one of the things that I feel a lot of people complain about Nintendo is that, with the Wii U at least, it's 720p this game and that game, it's not 1080p. But there were so many games I played on the Wii U where I never noticed any issues with the frame rate, and the games looked marvelous for that, even in 720p HD. And I think that's important. We're so focused on this resolution sort of, I guess, phase, or I don't know what you would call it, but at least me, as someone who has grown up playing my favorite games on the PS1 and PS2 and stuff like that, these are all standard definition games, and I can pick them up and enjoy them just as much today. And the thing is, a lot of these games just run stable, and I never even was aware of what frame rate or anything was, because I never encountered much of an issue of that, if at any. I think that's what I love about going back to these games and playing them, is that I feel like I still can play them. Yes, there are games where I feel like, resolution does impact the game enough, but again, this is going back to games that are standard definition, and some are, much lower quality than others. For example, PS1 versus the PS2. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. If I could have a game that was 1080p, 30 frames per second, stable, or 720p 60 frames a second stable, that would depend on the game. If I'm talking about an action RPG, I would prefer 720p 60 frames a second. Things like Nier Automata, Kingdom Hearts games, that would be incredible. But again, when we're looking at games that maybe like turn-based and stuff like that, I would be happy to see 1080p 30 frames per second stable, if that can be locked. So yeah, anyways, let me know your thoughts below. Even feel free to extend on some other sort of visual aspects of games that you like to see, I guess, whether polished or stable or sort of implemented is the word. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But yeah, anyways, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for sharing, subscribing, and until next video, stay spot on.